there's no end to the rush for cash. Just what's going on? Long queues still being reported from all around the country. But if there's one group of people who are looking for solutions, in fact, who are offering the solutions, and we're also told that it's never been a better time to be involved with a mobile wallet, working for one, setting up one, or certainly being the end user on one either. That time, of course, is now. Joining me, someone who's doing just that, Rajan, Chief Executive Officer of FreeCharge, one of India's top mobile wallets. Thanks very much, Mr. Rajan, for coming in to speak to us. I think there's just no doubt that this is perhaps the best time to be involved with a mobile wallet. But what's the kind of growth that you've seen in the last week or so?
So if you look at, let's say, the cash load, for example, where consumers actually load the wallet and then they use it. If you compare what we've seen since November 6th, since the announcement, to the same time last year, and the reason I'm comparing that is because post-Diwali there's always a lull.
Sure.
We have seen growth which is the first 2 days 10 times. So the transaction volumes went up 10 times in terms of load, in terms of a cash load. And now they are sort of at about 4 to 5 times what it was same time last year. So there's amazing growth because suddenly consumers are now using the wallet and have found it as a viable alternative to use cash in many different places, whether it's ordering for your food online, whether it's paying a merchant in the street, or any other transaction, even for example P2P. You know, 2 years ago we saw a big jump in transaction values at 1,100 rupees and 2,100 rupees, and we didn't get it. And then somebody pointed out that actually it's Shagun.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so consumers are finding, actually we are getting surprised by the various different ways in which consumers are using the wallet. It's not the kind of stuff that we actually anticipated.
Right. Now, you know, in response to that, the critics, the cynics would always say, but you know, you need a smartphone to use apps of this kind. How many in India would have it? Our sort of digital penetration, still internet penetration, still rather poor. We've got ambitious targets, but we're really not close to meeting them yet. How would you respond to that?
I think, you know, there has never been a better time, and there has never been a better sort of, no other country has been in a better position, is in a better position in India in terms of the growth of the consumer internet. If you look at India today, you can get good quality smartphones for 5,000 rupees. It's not happened before. Today, the price of 1 GB of data hasn't changed in the last 4 or 5 years, and maybe it's going to go down now given the intense competition that's coming in. 3G and 4G networks are being rolled out across the country. Internet is going to become more affordable in this country than it has ever been before. And by the way, India is one of the cheapest countries for data. So I think the ecosystem is really going through the roof. In urban India at least, there's very few people that I see now who haven't heard of a smartphone or who don't use a smartphone. So I think that criticism is a bit misguided.
So you don't think that when we talk about mobile wallets, when we talk about technology of this kind, those who say that this is only for a certain kind of people, it's only a certain kind of Indian, urban, semi-urban, largely literate, you don't think that that's really true? You think that eventually access will be
I think access will come there much faster than before. In 1998, when, you know, telephone calls were 21 rupees or 19 rupees a minute, and somebody told you that in 5 years' time or 6 years' time you have 500 million Indians on a mobile phone, would you have believed it? I think that's the same revolution that's going to come in the internet space. I mean, look at it. You can actually get onto a high-quality smartphone which has 3G, 4G for 5,000 rupees. When has it ever happened before? And by the way, that's not very much costlier than most other feature phones. So I think hundreds and millions of Indians, in fact, we feel that at least another 300 to 400 million Indians will come online in the next 3 to 4 years. And that's huge. That's transformative. That's not just big, it's transformative. And by the way, it's no different from the mobile revolution that happened 15 years ago.
So given those numbers that you're speaking about, which is of course, like you're saying, transformative, there's just no better way to put it. What are players like yourself doing to get every last wallet on?
Yeah, so one of the simplest things is consumers move from the habit of using cash to the habit of using digital currency, is really to make that switch in habit seamless and smooth. If you look at our app, we really focused on UI so that for a first-time user, when they go through the app and when they make a payment, it's very, very intuitive.
It's effortless. That really is a big attraction.
And if people turn around and ask you how to make a payment, then you've failed in the design. And then we've actually created a barrier to consumers adopting this new habit. So our focus has been really to make sure that within 10 seconds through a wallet, you can make a transaction. The other thing that we work on very hard is actually about security.
I see. And that's a valid concern.
See, consumers
Especially
do have,
women.
consumers always have the concern. I'll come to women in a bit. Consumers always have that concern when it's about something new, something they've not used before. And if you look at cash, for example, every time you carry a large wad of cash with you, now that is a security risk, wherever you're going, especially if you're out in the public. When you do a cash transaction and maybe something wrong has happened in the transaction, you've given the money to the wrong person, or you bought the wrong goods, you can't reverse it. The cash is anonymous and fully fungible. But a digital transaction can always be reversed.
It's a mindset that you're reaching out. I would imagine a certain generation is perhaps easier to get on board. They are, the young are perhaps easy to co-opt.
No, you're absolutely right. I think the young are always easier to co-opt, whether you're getting them to use a conditioner and using a shampoo, or whether it's about... So that's true. But I think for example, the Shagun thing, it just took us by surprise. We didn't realize, we wanted, what is this transaction? And then we realized that it is basically Shadi season now, and obviously it's Shagun, right? Today, for example, when you want somebody to do a transaction and they don't want to put their mobile number in, they don't want to key in the entire mobile number because they don't want to share the mobile number, you can actually do a transaction using a QR code. So you don't need to, and QR code is very simple. Just scan the QR code. Most phones have a camera. Just scan the QR code and the payment goes through automatically. So I think the two things that really will get consumers to move from the habit of using cash to the habit of using digital payments is the fact that a digital payment is infinitely more convenient.
You just need to convince the user about that.
No,
how much of a challenge is that in India to sort of break this, like you're saying, because we are so sort of for India to in a mindset to go cashless or go digital, it's just a challenge.
I think we have a great demographic dividend in the country. So many young people, and percentage of population who's younger is actually increasing. So as a country, we're actually getting younger, which is amazing. I think the second thing that we're also seeing is that consumers transacting on a mobile is not a new thing. They have filled up their wallets or their recharge accounts for years altogether. So they're comfortable with it. So the concept is not entirely alien. In fact, consumers quickly understand what it is. And what we see is, if a consumer does 3 to 5 transactions, the chance that the consumer comes back next month is about 90%.
Oh, I see.
But if the consumer does 2 transactions and less,
then you're still iffy.
Then it's about 40-50% that the consumer will come back. So fundamentally, once the consumer has 3 to 5 transactions, they've seen how easy it is to use.
Then there's a stickiness that they perhaps... tell me one thing, given the scenario at present in the country, what is still your biggest challenge?
See, I think our biggest challenge fundamentally is that cash or e-cash or digital money was always technically superior to physical cash. It's more secure because you don't need to carry it. Transactions are more traceable, and therefore you can be audited and you can reverse a wrong transaction. Given the fact that today on your phone we can pick up your location, we can pick up lots of security related information, we can encrypt data, and we can do device fingerprinting. Actually on FreeCharge we have more than 500 checks that happen real time as you make a payment.
I see.
A transaction on FreeCharge or a transaction on a digital wallet has always been technically far more efficient, more secure and more convenient than cash. But the biggest problem that we've always had is that structurally in the economy, there were many factors that was driving structural preference for cash.
I see.
Merchants would prefer to use cash, especially your large long tail merchants would prefer to get cash. And what has now happened with this move with the government, which is aimed at eradicating black money, is precisely that sort of, shall I say, this perverse incentive that cash had
is sort of now
is going away. So imagine you have a product that is actually better than cash, but there's a perverse incentive that's coming in the way of adoption. And suddenly that perverse incentive, or maybe I should call it a disincentive, is getting removed.
I see.
And which probably was the biggest roadblocker today.
I see. Sure, fair enough. I also want to ask you, there are now several players in this space as well. First question, it's nice to see this kind of competition, but do you believe there's room for everyone?
See, I've said this all the time. I was asked this question for the first time when I joined FreeCharge 15 months ago. I was asked the same question. See, we are in the market development phase of this industry. It's too early to talk about competition.
I see.
There is only one competition, and that competition is cash. Today, 98% of the transactions in retail are non-cash, are cash.
Are cash even now.
2% of transactions are non-cash.
So it's a very tiny fraction that we're looking at anyway.
So we've got to think of it yourself. In the last 10 transactions you did, how many were cash? And I'm talking about transactions that could be 10 rupees, or transactions that could be 100 rupees, or transactions that could be 1,000 rupees. So I think that the real task for all of us is really the market development task. And we at FreeCharge are fully focused on developing the market. Our objective is to make sure that consumers have the best experience. Our security is top of the pops. And I think that will get us to grow the market.
Sure. This is of course a great time for opportunity for players like yourself, but it's also a great time for innovation, to look at more products and how they can sort of change the way that we are operating at present as we head towards this digital economy. Give me a sense of the kind of innovation, the kind of innovation that we need. What all do we need? What are the kind of thoughts that we perhaps could look at? I mean, you don't have to divulge any top secret information over here, of course, but just like some sense of the kind of development that we need, the kind of ideas that players like yourself need to come up with to sort of make it a seamless experience for the customer.
So if you look at what we've already done on FreeCharge, in our world, less is more. The biggest challenge actually is actually giving consumers a great experience and yet not having a very heavy app, given the given the ecosystem in India, small memories on phones, clogged airways and so on and so forth. So if you look at FreeCharge, we do everything within 10 MB. So the app is just 10 MB when you download it. Yeah, and that is a big innovation, because that means that every single smartphone in this country, whatever the size of the memory, can actually, you can have a fantastic experience. QR code is a huge innovation for India, because if you're not fully literate and you don't need to type anything, you just need to scan it, and it works in a country like India. But I think this is just a tip of the iceberg.
Sure, fair enough.
There are so many industries, and let's take an example. Let's take mutual funds, or for example, insurance. Today, the percentage of people who are covered by mutual fund or insurance is in single digits. And the reason for that is the cost of last mile is tremendous.
It's huge.
Yeah. So let's take two-wheeler insurance, for example. Less than 25% of two-wheeler insurance actually gets renewed, because the cost of reaching the last mile is so high that it doesn't sort of make any financial sense. But suppose you paid two-wheeler insurance like you paid your recharge or like you paid a bill, that will shoot up. So I think we've got a great platform. And we now need to take it to more and more categories.
Maybe that's the kind of messaging that really needs to go out there to convince all those perhaps still sitting on the fence. But Mr. Rajan, thank you so much for your time. This, of course, like you have said and underscored, is perhaps a great time to be associated in any way with a mobile wallet. Thanks again for your time. So, of course, watch this space for more. There's no end to the queues there as the cry goes out for India to truly move from being a cash economy to a digital one. Keep your experiences coming in. So many of you, of course, have been writing in to share your thoughts and how you believe this could have been smoother. We'll keep those coming in too. For the moment, let's take a quick break. Since demonetization, RBI data has revealed 1 million users being added on mobile wallets across the country every single day. And with more and more people doing digital payments, it's important that we know how secure these payments really are. To find that out, today I'm standing with Mr. Ajay Bhutani, who is the head of technology at FreeCharge, a mobile wallet. Welcome, Mr. Bhutani.
Hi, Ria.
So I'm going to start with a very simple question. Last week, I completely cracked my phone. It is broken.
Okay.
Nothing works, and I have to give it to get repaired. But I have a mobile wallet on my phone. So I'm scared that can my details that are saved on my mobile wallet be accessed by the person who repairs my phone?
It really depends. See, I'll put it this way. Your wallet is like your locker. So you have to be very careful with it. Right? So what I'll typically recommend you is go to your wallet website, like in case of FreeCharge, just go reset your password. It completely gets protected. You're going to take your SCIM out. After that, wallets like FreeCharge are 100% protected. No problem if they access your data.
So in general, when I put all my details into a mobile wallet, I'm entering my credit card number, my CVV code, another password after that. So how secure are all these details on a mobile wallet? Who can penetrate and access them?
That's a good question, right? See, there are levels of security that comes in. One is compliance. So there are international compliances which are there for cards. Then there are compliances which are there for wallet, which RBI regulates, right? So anybody who's a wallet company has to adhere to all those regulations. Then companies like us, on top of that, build a lot more models on top of it, and look at how do we add further layers of security. So it's about layers, adding layers and layers and layers of security to ensure our consumers don't get impacted. First layer is basic, that everybody has to implement. Second layer is what companies like us provide fundamentally to our consumers so that they are more protected.
I came across a few
advices that were on these tech forums and they say don't do this and do this. So I actually have a list and I'm going to ask you whether these are true or not, just to find out what you should and should not be doing. So one of them was don't use a jailbroken or rooted phone because you forgo many security features in your phone that hackers can now penetrate. So a mobile wallet should not be downloaded on a jailbroken phone.
That's a very good question. So for example, we have been doing this as a practice where if you install our app on a jailbroken phone, most of the time you cannot even install that app. The app will not work, right? Because we realize that many people won't even realize that they have a jailbroken phone, right? It's about layers again, right? While this is a good recommendation, I expect some people may miss it, and we as wallet companies have to build even for that. We do that. So it's a true recommendation. Please follow it.
So the next one was every time you do a transaction, make sure you uncheck the box that says save your credit card details for the future.
That's a very good question. I think you have to really believe in who you trust and who you don't trust. Right? So internationally, the standard that we follow from card process is the same everywhere. But we make sure when you're saving that card data, you really trust that brand name. And the trust that comes with them, right? So like for us, it's international compliances and many other things we do to protect consumer data. Not everybody will. But you have to rest assured that if somebody is asking you for tech, there'll be also certifications available that you can read on that website, whether they are compliant or not.
So the next one was when you're using your mobile wallet, don't do it on an open Wi-Fi server.
I don't think that's a problem. You don't have to worry about it. As a baseline regulation that even RBI has set for any wallet in our country, you don't have to worry about it.
So the next one was a mobile wallet is as safe as your physical bank account or any physical debit card or credit card transaction. So is it or is it not as safe?
I would say in many ways we are better. I'll explain you how, right? So when you talk about the bank's technology, banks are typically buying technology from third-party vendors. They establish it once, keep it, and then they upgrade it every 6 months or every 1 year, right? And the engineers who are working on it make that technology generic and sell it to everybody, right? When it comes to us, we're building it. We understand that every day, we respond to every day. So our ability to adjust to threats and adjust to coaching people better is way, way better than compared to a bank.
There are many new features coming out by different wallets saying, you know, you don't need a smartphone to make a mobile wallet transaction. You can enter this mobile number, make a call, do a missed call, things like that. So does a transaction on a phone that is not a smartphone, is it less secure than a transaction on a smartphone?
It depends. See, it's like, just like you took an example of if I am on a public Wi-Fi network, how is it handled, right? There are protocols and regulations around it. A good solution would ensure it is good, right? So when we, for example, go ahead and say this is a solution that works for a feature phone, we'll make sure it's good, right? But end of the day, there are also companies who have built features and rolled back features, right? And as a company, you should be very conscious, as a consumer, you should be very conscious about when that kind of a thing happens, because that means people haven't thought through it. So it's not about which medium, it's about whether the company is thinking through what they're building and what they're providing or not.
India saw one of the biggest debit card breaches that it's ever seen in the last 2 months, and there were massive debit card breaches across the country. So people are moving away from cash, but the cashless economy, which is the plastic economy, also has breaches. Mobile wallets also have breaches. So how can we get to a point where the digital cashless economy that we are hoping to get to with this policy is completely secure? Do you think we're getting to that point? How much further do we have to go to be completely secure? And is there such a thing as being completely secure?
I think it's about building security. Since we talked about debit cards, I'll talk about the example I had at dinner yesterday. Right? So my mom said she wants to pay using card. And she's now picking up card for the first time because now there's too less cash in the account for all of us, right? So she gave her card, and the waiter there, whom we know for last 4 years, goes and says, "Madam, pin lik dijiye piche." Right? And this is not the first time I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen to me 6 months ago with my jeweler when he asked this to me. And I know both of these guys had all their best intentions in place, right?
I'm sure.
The problem with card network is that it's built in such a way with things like static pin that it's more risky.
Okay.
on an offline transaction, because people have assumed that it cannot be used anywhere else. I'm using somewhere else. I'm lazy. I'm not going to get up and give it. So card and PIN as a process is weak.
Okay.
Now that's not the case with something like wallet.
Okay.
Wallets are extremely secure. So it's again about layers. So I build layers and layers and layers of security, and every day I think about how do I build layers of security for my consumer, which is India. India is different than any other country. We are different people. We trust people differently. We must mistrust people differently.
Right.
It's culturally different for us, right?
Right.
So we have to build for that. And that's where wallets are different, and that's where wallets is the future, because we build what we want for our consumers, and we build it every day for that. Banks don't do that.
Yes.
Banks buy.
Banks. Okay.
Catch the Heads Up episodes you might have missed during the week at these times only on NDTV Prime.